Welcome to the FulfillYN Podcast, where we sit down with the people rethinking logistics from the ground up. If you're a D2C brand founder who's ever been ghosted by your warehouse or paid for services you couldn't even understand on the invoice, you're in the right place. Today's guest is Ezra Avidan, co-founder and CEO of ShipFlow, a multi-channel e-commerce 3PL based in New Brunswick, New Jersey. But before he was moving over 3 million orders a year, Ezra was building a D2C footwear brand, Floopi, with his brothers. Their growth was explosive, their 3PL, a disaster. Inventory lost, zero transparency, and no one picking up the phone. So they said screw it and brought logistics in-house. Eventually they realized if we're solving this for ourselves, maybe we can solve it for others too. That's how ShipFlow was born. So let's start with the moment this all turned. You were scaling Floopi when your 3PL basically blew up your supply chain. Do you remember the exact moment you said, we're done with outside providers, we're going to build our own? What happened that day?
Well, that was a great day. That was about 12 years ago or so. We were in a little 800 square foot retail space in Brooklyn, New York. We were using a 3PL in Jersey. It was like a dinosaur 3PL. We're lucky we had a portal to see our inventory, and they didn't even do drop ship. So we were just a brand selling online. We just started about it. We were like 3-4 months in, and we were pumping. We were doing a few hundred orders a day. And we would literally bring inventory from our 3PL to our retail location in Brooklyn, New York. We were, we were growing that business. It was getting busier and busier. We thought we were going to be there for 2 years. We ended up making that decision to leave within like 4 months of being in that space. We decided it's not the right fit to use a 3PL. It's funny that because I'm a 3PL owner now. So we decided to make the move to Jersey. We moved to about, I would say, 9,000 square feet. We were doing everything in-house. We learned everything from scratch. Our first system was called Finale Inventory. And it was also a pretty old system. We were learning everything on the go. We had about, I would say, like 200 pallet locations. It was just myself and my two brothers. We didn't even have employees yet. And we were doing about a few hundred orders a day. And it really started to get out of hand. We started building our expertise, learning, making tons of mistakes. Over time, obviously, our tech became much stronger. We were doing a few thousand orders at that point, I think after like a year and a half. And we were pumping. And at that point, I think it was a year and a half, we partnered up with Seller Cloud, which is an OMS and an extension of their system. They have a WMS called SKU, and that's where everything began. We were really, we were growing at such a rapid rate, dealing with so many different retailers, Shopify, and to name a few, like Target, Nordstrom's, QVC.com, Walmart, Amazon, and we were not in the 3PL business. We were just growing super fast. Our tech needed to grow with us. And so it was that decision that we made. And one of the main reasons was our old 3PL was losing our stuff and the portal was just not handling what we needed. So
is that 3PL still open today?
No, they're not. No, they're not. It's funny. I do call him from time to time. It's someone that I know. He's still a good friend. But I think he sold the building or something. So yeah.
So when you flipped from brand operator to logistics provider, what did you suddenly get about 3PLs that you didn't understand before?
When we decided to open up the 3PL in our business, running our brand Floopi, I think we were like, don't quote me on these facts, but I think we were like 6 years in. We already built crazy tech stack. Our put to light wall system we were already using. We helped develop the put to light wall system with the team over at SKU Blocks. When we made that decision, we were technically a 3PL. We just weren't dealing with customers, right? We were dealing with ourselves. We were the customer. But when we brought in a customer, and it wasn't just a regular customer. This is a customer that had 30,000 SKUs. This was a customer that sold on multiple platforms. This was a customer that had a heavy B2B. So they were both D2C, B2B, many SKUs.
And just for context, at the time, how many SKUs were you managing on a day-to-day basis?
About 3,000.
Okay, so this is a tremendous increase from, because in
Definitely a
the shoe
tremendous.
industry, the shoe industry is high SKU in its own right. There's different colors, different sizes, each of those are their own SKUs.
Different styles, colors, sizes, widths. So honestly, we were hungry. I'll tell you that. We were confident enough because we had the tech stack to back us up. We had the infrastructure, we had the employees, we had the setup in the warehouse. Everything was really ready to go. Um, so it was like really we were just swallowing them in, and all we had to learn was technically just get used to the billing, which we're quick learners. We're very agile. We move quick. We learn quick. We're very resourceful as well. Yes, I'm not gonna lie. There was a few hiccups in the beginning. We didn't bill for something. We overbilled for something. Obviously, it was a brand that trusted us. We knew them from before. That's why they came to us. They were looking for a 3PL, and they asked me to recommend someone because I'm in the high SKU game, technically. And I told them, you know what, guys, I can probably do it better than most people out there. And I worked out pricing, probably priced them too low or whatever it is, or maybe too high. I'm not sure. But they ended up choosing us. They're still with us today after, I think, like 5 years, 4 or 5 years. They're still with us today. What we did for that brand was tremendous. They came from their own warehouse without a system. Imagine. So really, when we made that switch, it was super, super exciting for us because it opened up a whole new industry for us. It was an industry that we were technically in already, but now we were selling our services, and getting into the service game. And I love me myself as a main point of contact dealing with brands. I love dealing with people. I love getting problems and creating solutions. That's literally the most fun thing I could ever think of. It might sound weird, but whenever there's a problem, it's like, all right, what are we doing? How do we fix? Do we need to code something? Do we need to whatever? Like, the reason why that's exciting for me is because I'm a brand owner also. And a lot of brands that we speak to, sometimes they don't understand how much that helps the situation. Um, so yeah, I mean, and there's stories I can tell you where that came into, how that helped on the brand side and on the 3PL side.
You starting a brand, partnering with a 3PL. 4 months later, you depart from the 3PL. You run operations smoothly for Floopi. It takes obviously a significant amount of time for you guys to be able to adjust to an entirely new process. And you have a friend that approaches you and says, hey, we've got a brand. We're also doing in-house. Would you be able to take this on? Obviously, the scope of work is something that you wouldn't even begin to imagine what it's going to look like. I'm sure you thought you knew what you were getting yourself into, but ultimately, once you actually started, it was a whole different ballgame. But now fast forward, let's say you're a couple months in, and you are exactly what you didn't appreciate just a few years back. You are now a 3PL for a brand. And I'm curious, some of the things that used to drive you crazy about your 3PL when you were running Floopi, and then how you completely outlawed those types of things when it came to ShipFlow.
It's a great, great question. Um, it's something I tell brands every day. We built this 3PL on our experience, right? All the experience we have, and I could say that, very confidently. Why? Because my business, we've been through every avenue of a brand owner, of a wholesaler, a B2B, a D2C. We've built all around that. We were in it. We were in the high volume game. We still are. Um, we're not a mom and pops type of brand, and I say that respectfully. We build something. We're importers, so we deal with China, we deal with freight, we deal with customs, we deal with trucking, we deal with FBA, all the way down to D2C. How to wrap the package, how to ship it to the customer, the whole entire customer journey, the whole package journey, when it gets to there. To the customer, we deal with we deal with Walmart, we deal with most retailers because we've done it for ourselves. So when we had issues, we needed to fix those issues. Shipping to Ross or Burlington stores or TJ Maxx or Marshalls or Target or whatever it is. When we needed to do it, we had to figure it out. There was no one there to teach us. We figured it out. We got it right. We learned. And how do we make it more efficient? That's what makes us experts in what we do. Plus our aggressiveness to getting things done. There's a lot of people that, I respect a lot of people that have protocol and, it has to go through this guy and this guy. There's no bureaucracy here. We get things done. And I think a lot of brands that we work with and brands that we spoke to appreciate that, because at the end of the day, everyone can fulfill an item. Everyone can do that, right? Some people obviously don't know, or some people just don't do it good. We can fulfill items. We've been through most scenarios of a flash sale or a sale coming in with 10,000 orders in one day. What do? Some 3PLs will break down. They wouldn't know what to do, right? We've been through every scenario. So, when talking to brands or dealing with the brands that we already work with, they don't look at us just as their 3PL partner. And I don't know if I sound like a broken record. Maybe other 3PLs say this, but like, we're literally extending past just fulfillment. Brands reach out to us and I'm happy to provide all of our resources for them to help support them in whatever they do. If it's expanding to retail, why not? If it helps me, if it helps them, and then it helps me, why not? So that's the type of team that we are. And, a lot of other 3PLs, they're just operators, right? They just know logistics. Logistics is the easy part. It's how do I help that brand grow as well? And it's not a service that I charge as a line item. Here's a brand. Here's a perfect scenario. We have a brand that just got onto Target.com. They just got onto Kohl's.com, and now they're on and QVC.com. This was within 3 months. We made connections with them. We spoke to them. We meet with our brands in person a lot of times, and we tell them, guys, and I tell them, like, respectfully, I don't want to get in their business, but I could wear two hats. I'm a brand owner. I'm a 3PL operator. So I can literally go above and beyond and explain to them, guys, you're missing out on these opportunities. Yes, if I get more orders, I make more money. It's going to support them and explode their brand even more across more platforms. So we literally have a brand. They just told us today they just got approved for Kohl's.com because we made that connection for them. We introduced them. We walked them through what it's going to entail, and it's something that they wouldn't have maybe at other 3PLs.
Curious in terms of, big picture, because I think a lot of what the newer or smaller 3PLs push themselves is that come to us because you're not going to have the bureaucracy of a large corporation or a 3PL that doesn't care for you, or a 3PL that you're just going to be a number. And that is true in the beginning stages, but these companies don't, they didn't start their companies in the hopes that they'll have a bureaucratic process. They started it with the same intentions that every person does. And eventually the company grows to a size where that's just not manageable for the CEO to get on the call with every brand that comes to the door, and for them to be able to give their undivided attention and help them with beyond the scope of fulfillment. So how do you think of that in terms of your long and big picture for ShipFlow?
Sure. I love that question. I tell brands many times, that's one thing that I took from leaving that 3PL 12 years ago. Communication is so important. Because I didn't have communication, I felt like I was lost. The ultimate goal for a 3PL is to build a system and an operation in a way that the brand will never have to call, right? That's, where's my order? So we're going to teach them how to do that, right? Or we're working on a really, really cool automation that's going to work with Slack. That we use Slack with every brand. So it's going to be like supercharged with some AI involved on communicating with the brand. So if they ever have something, they'll read it, they'll answer them, they'll give them a message. Did this order ship yet? They'll answer them back exactly with that order, a little tiny, like few sentences. It's still in picking status. It's still being picked or whatever. It'll automatically answer them. Those are like the redundant, the questions that, that could handle. But I always tell brands, and I literally told this to a brand that we met with about 2.5 months ago. It's an Australian brand that is by a very large 3PL, and it's a perfect brand. I would say 150 SKUs, Menachem, 150 or 160 pallets of inventory that turns over super quick, that has kitting involved, and they're doing about 25,000 orders a month. Great brand. I told them straight up, they asked me the same question. I told them, I'd rather grow slow than have our communication that we have with the brand get affected. I would rather grow slower. Why? Because I know that if I keep that in, the brands will be super happy. They'll never think of leaving because I see brands, I talk to brands all the time. Why do you leave? Why do you want to this? I can't get in touch with. Here's one perfect example. We had a brand that started about 5 months ago here in the pajama business, kids pajamas. He was by Flexport for 2 years and he ended up leaving. He ended up coming to us. Why? Yeah, they have good rates, right? They have good, his products are spread across like 20 different fulfillment centers, which he hates, but the communication was not on point. Like something, I wouldn't say so simple, but we were able to acquire that customer with that type of issue. Because we actually did have pretty good rates against Flexports. Maybe they were a little bit cheaper. Um, but communication, he slacks us. The team slacks us. Where's this? How do I do this? Blah, blah, blah. Integration. We did it in one day. Like some people say it's going to take 3-4 weeks. No, if it's not custom, we'll get it done in a day, two max. So the communication is something that I will hold on to dearly to never let go. Look, God willing, we grow to 5, 6 locations, even 2, 3 locations, reaching 2, 3, 500,000 square feet. I still want the brands to feel very comfortable to call us. If that's not possible still, which is I highly doubt, I'm willing to even put someone on the ground that's dedicated to 1 or 2 brands only, right? If it's a very large brand, they want someone in there. I want it to feel like it's their warehouse. It's like they can walk in, right? They can talk to Freddie at the warehouse. This is their go-to guy. And if they need to call me or Slack me, I always tell them. I even tell them, let's get on a huddle, let's talk, instead of just emailing. Or I don't even think I've emailed a brand, a current brand in the last like 6 months. Our communication is literally instant messaging, or they huddle with me. So obviously, if someone calls me at 1 a.m. and I'm sleeping, I can't pick up. But that hasn't happened yet.
So your opinion is that the reason why 3PLs outgrow themselves is primarily because they lose that communication with the customers.
Yeah, I mean, think about it. Look, if everything is going well and there's no need for communication, it's logistics. Let's cut the, whatever. Um, there's always an issue, right? There's always something. So many moving parts, especially someone with a lot of SKUs. Obviously, it's very little. We have a brand that has 1 SKU, so it's super easy. So we barely hear from them, and they barely hear from us. Everything is just flowing, So those are great. But when they do reach out, we answer them right away, literally within minutes. If it's not me, it's someone on my team. If they need to speak to me directly, we're there. So it's really, as brands grow, they need more care. The smaller the brand, well, I wouldn't say the smaller the brand. There's some brands that are too small that have too many questions, which, we try to pick, there's 3PLs for everyone. But brands that are, as they grow, they will need more care. And I love that. I love that they need more care. That means they're growing. How do I help them grow now? How can I get them bigger? We have big plans here at ShipFlow. Things that we think of that are just still ideas, but we're trying. Our main goal is, building this vertical on beyond fulfillment. How do we literally hold the brand and direct them into the right, let us help you grow. And what does that mean? It can mean a million things. Packaging, customs, not us actually doing the customs, but shipping. Can I introduce you to someone for shipping, for freight from China, let's say? Do you need sourcing for a factory? I mean, this is a little bit extended. This is far out. Maybe they need help with retailers. Maybe they need to get into Costco stores. This is just things that I'm thinking like 2 years down the line, 3 years down the line. I don't want to just be a fulfillment partner. I want to literally surround them with resources. If they need it, they can just go and tap into it. So
I think one of the things that's at least super popular for 3PLs to say is, you get what you pay for. It's attribution to, you can chase the cheapest 3PL and you'll find the price that you're looking for, but you're going to make up for that in the services that you're going to get. And I think that concept is not necessarily true today because of the robotics, because some 3PLs are just set up to be more efficient. They need less staff. They have economy of scale, so they are able to, let's say, have cheaper shipping. But ultimately, whenever you are bidding on a big brand, you're involved in an RFP, RFQ. And I know that you're a big advocate for not trying to chase to be the cheapest. But have you ever lost a deal to a cheaper 3PL and had the same brand ever come back crawling to you?
It's a great concept. Great question. We did actually. We had a brand that did not go to another 3PL. They were thinking, I'll tell you the story actually. It was last year. We met them at a trade show. They're in the resort wear clothing, high end, retailing 70, 100, 200, 300, $400 resort wear. They're based in Latin America. We had a call with them. Great team, great team. We had a call with them for a month and a half. They were mostly Shopify D2C, special packaging, beautiful product, and they had 2 retail stores as well in the United States. And they said after a month and a half, we're gonna end up going with Amazon as a 3PL. And this is us working with them for a month to a month and a half. And that's where my brand hat kicked in actually. I could wear 2 hats. That's where it kicked in. I was like, guys, I wrote them an email. I said, look, I respect your decision, and and then I laid out, I think it's a very bad decision going to Amazon. Your products are going to get split across 100 different fulfillment centers. You want something done, you're lucky you're going to get an answer within 2 weeks, 3 weeks. And I even gave them an example. I wanted to change an image on Amazon. It took me 4 months to change an image on Amazon. You're going to be entering a machine. You guys are in the boutique business. They have a nice amount of orders, but they're a boutique type of brand, meaning they have 2 retail stores, expensive products. You're going to get crushed, eaten alive, and you're going to be out of business within a month or 2. I left it at that. They reached out a month and a half later. They're saying, "Hey, Ezra, let's continue talks." So I guess
But
they
at
saw
that stage, they haven't partnered with Amazon.
they were very close. I think they even started a little. We get like 2 or 3 FBA or Amazon returns. I think they just dipped into it and then they got out. So they realized, and I told them, look, communication. Yeah, they have technology, and but communication was number one, and like the flexibility. You're in a box. You're rigid. You can't move. You got to go by Amazon. If you don't listen, they're gonna eat you. So, and a month and a half later, we ended up signing them. So
there's a lot of brands that do proper due diligence before they sign with a 3PL. I think it's also directly correlated with the size of the brand and how much experience they have with outsourcing to 3PL. Many of them will come to the facility, meet the staff on the floor, who their account manager is going to be. But for a lot of smaller brands, they are strictly just going to do video calls. They're going to get a feel for the sales rep. Maybe they'll do a virtual tour. But ultimately, the decision always comes down to pricing. And I think for any service, it's always going to come down to pricing. But when you're on a call with a brand and they say, "Hey, we liked you, we liked your team. Again, this is a brand that hasn't come to tour your facility. They're just looking at pricing," and they say, "We are not aligned on the numbers. We got a quote that's a lot cheaper, and this is your last chance to get them to sign with you guys." What are you telling them? What are risks that you're bringing up to them that they haven't considered, that in this short period of time you can change your mind to not only focus on price but to also focus on services?
a lot of this, Menachem, and some of the mistakes, sometimes they're right. A lot of mistakes that 3PLs make when trying to win that business at that last second. The problem is, especially the smaller brands or smaller teams or whatever, they're not educated. I say that with the most respect. When I say not educated, I mean is we need to educate them on how the pricing, what to look for. Because a 3PL could come in and be like, all right, I'm going to charge you a quarter for a pick and pack and blah, 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 and then $4 for per order fee. Sometimes they'll miss that. They won't know, oh, he's charging us a quarter for pick and pack. Oh my God. You know what I mean? And I always tell them, and I literally said this with a brand that does 2,000 orders a month and a brand that does 30,000 orders a month. I tell them, you want your 3PL to make money. That's number one. You want your 3PL to make money. I say that. I said it in person. I said it on a Zoom. I say it on everything on the call. You want your 3PL to make money. Why? Because you will feel it within a few months. If they're not making money, they will push you to the side. That's number one. Number two, When a brand comes to us and they say we have cheaper pricing, I tell them, tell me the pricing. Give me a chance, tell me the pricing. This happened actually 2 weeks ago. Tell them, tell me the pricing and let me break it down for you why. They're making it somewhere else. Always 99% of the time, they're going to make it somewhere else. Maybe not 90, maybe 90% of the time. Maybe they're just cheaper. And I'll tell them, look, I'll go back to them. They liked us and everything. It's just coming down to pricing. I'll maybe go back to the drawing board and I'll get them back pricing and maybe I can do it better. I'll squeeze here, I'll squeeze here, I'll squeeze here. I'll do whatever it takes to get that deal done if it's worth it for us, right? If I offer them $1.25 for a pick and pack and they come to me and I have someone for 50 cents. I tell them, hey, good luck. If you need any help, let me know. I'm always here to advise free of charge. I love helping brands, because I believe in karma. It'll come back one way or another. But again, I always try to educate the brands, and I tell this to other 3PL owners, and they all agree with me. A lot of brands, a lot of them are very smart. They know what they're doing. They only see numbers, which is smart, but you need to look at everything else around the numbers. Who's the team? Where are they? How do they operate? Did you speak to any of the other brands that are in their warehouse? A lot of this makes sense. We spoke to a brand that is by a big 3PL. We beat that 3PL in pricing by a lot. We showed them that this 3PL was making about $350,000 to $400,000 a year on them. We were saving them that amount per year. I didn't even budge. It didn't take me 3 weeks to come up with pricing. It took me 2 days. We didn't even budge. We were still making money. We were very profitable, thank God. When that 3PL found out, they thought they were bluffing. Long story short, the 3PL, and I'm guessing the brand did not know this, the 3PL became very nasty. Contracts, this, that, blah, blah, blah. Gave them a very sour taste in their mouth. So that's something that we're still working on with that brand. But like I said, we'll do whatever it takes to win that business if we can. If it's just going to be bottom line, I don't drop my pants for a brand, just because I don't just look at today, I look at the future as well for the brand. Yeah.
I think what's very interesting about the 3PL industry specifically is the fact that the success of the brand is directly correlated with the success of the 3PL, meaning the more packages the brand ships, the more money the 3PL makes. And not in every industry is that always the case. For, let's say, a pest control, they're incentivized to obviously come to your house more often, but they can't put bugs around your house to make a service call. But 3PLs, if they get you into more stores, if they're able to connect you with someone that's able to help the brand, it's good for the 3PL. That's their incentive, and incentives are very important in this industry. And a lot of 3PLs like to focus their attention on the big brands, the big numbers. And there's a lot of small brands that start out, and we all know success stories of smaller brands that 3PLs took on that end up becoming their largest clients in a short period of time. I'm curious if you have any of those types of success stories of a smaller brand that came to you that end up growing alongside with you guys.
So it's funny you say that. One of the first brands that we brought in, we kind of have a success story with them, both growing internally and out in the market. When they came to us, they had no system. They had nothing tracking their inventory. They had SKUs and inventory they didn't even know about. And we're talking about hundreds of thousands of dollars, maybe even millions. When they came to us, it took us about a good 6 months. We basically swallowed all their inventory. We didn't know what we were getting. I guess this is what happens with your first brand. You just say yes to everything. We basically reorganized them. We were able to show them what they have, recoup a lot of the money, that was just hidden there. I think it was like 11 trailers of product. That was just one step. And we basically made their business a lot more. We assisted in making their business way more efficient on how they deal with inventory, how they buy, how they sell, through our 3PL and through just advice, right? They had access to data that they never had through our systems. They had access to just pretty much everything. We caught so many mistakes that their factories were making that they never knew about. And then in terms of them growing, perfect example, they have grown a ton just because of the resources they tapped into with us. Like I said in the beginning of this podcast, introducing them to those retailers, those .com retailers, Kohl's, Target, and QVC.com. And then another one is with our brand over the last 5-6 years, we've built up a huge relationship with many TV networks, national TV networks like ABC, The Today Show, and The Today Show. So that business has grew for them tremendously. Now their products are selling on TV. So, you know, it's that's just one brand that we definitely helped. Another brand I'm thinking of is we have another brand that they're UK brand. They're one of the biggest. They are the biggest boxing lifestyle brands in the world, and they're about to launch. We're just doing their returns for the last 2 months. We're about to launch their US fulfillment now, and this is not really towards their success, but a lot of 3PLs, when they see a brand that's just no good, they'll just say no. They were rejected by a lot of 3PLs. Why? Um, they have a line of punching bags. Each one's like 300-400 pounds. Who in the world would want to take that, right? But you need to meet with the brand. You need to hear them out. What's their story? What's their future? What does it look like? You need to go through all these things and then make that decision, right? People just say, nah, I'm not doing that. And the brand didn't want to go with a 3PL that just wants them for their apparel business. Literally, they said, I'm not doing that. No, I don't want, I want them to take the bad stuff, and then maybe we'll give them their apparel, right? And we didn't know about that till after. But we saw what they're capable of. We saw that they didn't have a 3PL. They did have like a small 3PL in the United States, but it was just like a a return center, whatever. So we ended up taking on that brand. We did bring all those punching bags here. We got hell from our employees, but now we've accumulated through their returns programs tons of inventory, and they're going to start launching a lot of new products with us as well. And we're going to unleash crazy shipping rates, and just now all the American customers and South America, they're going to have access to that brand. So
it's actually an interesting point that you bring up, because I think that it's hard for a 3PL operator to know which brand to take a risk on, meaning that they're just in their early stages and they're destined for success, and then which brands are just going to be that dead, few pallets in your warehouse, no inventory, nothing happens to that brand. So what's kind of like the metrics that you use, or like some indicators that you have to see if whether this is a brand that you're willing to take a risk on, or this is just a dead brand?
Right. So remember, I can put my brand hat on, right? So I know how brands try and operate. I know where they're selling. When I'm looking at a competition of a brand for my industry, social media, how big are they on social media? This happens in most cases. This can work in most cases, and I'll tell you when it doesn't work. We look at their social media. Are they getting views? How strong are they? TikTok, are they on TikTok, Instagram, Facebook? Where are they? That's number one. How's their content? Because this is what I look at, because I could see how they operate. But how is their content on Instagram? Are they just doing like flat lays of their product and posting pictures? Are they getting comments on their posts and things? Are people reacting to their stuff? How is the customer engaging with them? You'd be you'd be surprised how much you can tell just by social media if the brand is on fire. Right? Then I go a step further. Are they selling on any retailers? Oh, wow, they're on Macy's.com. Oh, they're on Nordstrom's. Oh, they're on QVC. Are they just Shopify? How does their Shopify look? I can tell if a Shopify store looks like, garbage, or I can tell that they really have a legit team behind them. And then when I actually get on the phone with the brand, I'll ask them, what's your marketing go? Like, what do you, how are you guys growing? What's your plans for next year or this year? How are you trying to get new customers? Right? And I even start to think, how can I help them build their customer base in the back end? So I really look at, overall how the brand is operating through social media, through their products. What type of products are they selling? Do they have thousands and thousands and thousands of SKUs? We can legit tell. It basically helps us with that decision. When social media doesn't work, The brand, one of the brands that we met with, they do about 25 to 30,000 orders. I met that brand through a chat of other brands, and that brand owner asked a question of needing help with something with freight. And, I'm just a good guy, I guess. I introduced her to my freight guy. I happened to know I asked her, what's your brand? I went on her website. It was okay. It was nothing special. You can tell. I could tell from it. It looks like they're a smaller team, and their social media was okay. It wasn't a million. It wasn't a half a million. It was like 15, 20,000. All right. I didn't understand whatever. Like it didn't bring anything to me. So I just left it alone. And I did happen to mention that I also run a 3PL. It was a quick conversation on one of these social media. Sorry, it was like Slack. 2 weeks later, I get a text from her. Sorry, 2 weeks later, I messaged her. Did everything work out with my guy at this company, the freight company? Yeah, thank you so much. By the way, my COO is going to reach out to you. I said, okay, sure. I wasn't expecting much. I didn't lose sleep over it. I ended up getting an email a day later that this brand they showed me their numbers. We do this much. And my eyes opened up wide. I was like, what? It was about I think it was like 250,000 orders a year. And they were growing at like 5x. I was like, whoa, I did not see this coming. So you technically, when looking at a brand, you need to try to look at every avenue before meeting the brand. And then when you're with the brand, try to ask questions like that has nothing to do with fulfillment. Try to ask questions of, where are you selling? Or do you plan to expand to the US? Why aren't you guys selling to whatever? So super important because it could go either way.
What's one outdated practice in this industry that needs to die? And if you could kill it today, how would you do it?
Oof.
Where's the list?
Oh my God. In terms of operating a 3PL or dealing with brands?
I would say in terms of operating a 3PL.
I think email should die a slow death, surprisingly, right? It's too
What's the hot
slow.
take?
It's too slow. It's too slow. Maybe it's just me and my my blood boils. I'm just it's just too slow. In any avenue, even it's not that it's just too slow. You're trying to get things done quick. Brands want to move quick. 3PLs want to move quick. We want to close. We want to get them onboarded. So, that is something that's like the number one thing I could think of right now. Other things in the warehouse, I think warehouses should try and start using cloud-based WMSs, not programs that are, we learned that the hard way. I think cloud-based should be just a no-brainer. And you'd be surprised there's some things that do need to stick around that are old school that I think people are just like jumping to it. I don't know why. I don't know. People they're getting these robots, they're getting these things that they go and they pick with you. I'm sure maybe they work. They'll shave a minute off, or you'll save it. How much am I going to save? What's my ROI? Is it like 5 years to get my money back? Come on, unless you have 1 million square feet and you have people walking from side to side, then I understand you need to get a robot that will move a cart with you or whatever. But let's be real, 1 million square foot 3PL, I'm sure they're sectioning those off anyways, like B2B, D2C, and things like that. So, I say those are just not needed, really,
I think that's something I definitely hear a lot of 3PLs saying, how they're very against, not that they're against it, just that the ROI on these types of robotics, like they sound nice, but the ROI is not really there.
Menachem, I can't tell you um, how many liquidation sales emails I'm getting on 3PLs that are closing down. Why? Because they think that if they're VC backed or they get a nice injection of cash from an investor, they just feel like they could go shopping on a Uline catalog. And I tell people day in and day out, run away from these 3PLs. Run away. They're just spending money. I can't tell you how. Just today, I'm looking to buy an electric conveyor belt for like a tenth of a dollar, just because 10 cents on a dollar, because this 3PL, they just spent money. Like Here's one. Like a year and a half ago, we got a postcard of a 3PL, not necessarily a 3PL, but it was a warehouse that was liquidating everything. Um, it was in Pennsylvania. I told my brothers, let's get in the car, let's go. We get there. It was 800,000 square feet. This retailer that went out of business for reasons I can talk about on another podcast. We went to the 3PLs, 800,000 square feet. Malcolm, I could literally eat off the floor. They invested $85 million. They were only there for 8 months. 8 months. They had like 3 or 4 levels of picking. Um, uh, 2,000 brand new Uline garbage cans. Why? Like just the stupidity, it was so irresponsible spending. So, these 3PLs, they think like, oh, I'm going to get this and this and this brand new racks. Like, come on. You want to build a business, you want to build a 3PL, you need to be lean. You need to be lean. You want to win those customers, it just, people need to be smarter. And I think, a lot of these operators, they think that they need to be like Google overnight. No, you don't. Trust me. The amount of money I saved, I guess I'll say the retailer, but I have Zulily bins running around my warehouse because I was able to buy them for 75 cents and they cost probably $30 each bin. So, that's how we grow and that's how we get stronger. So I think that's something a lot of 3PLs should have in mind. Stop trying to be, um, you know, all fancy, grow your business, gain customers, and then you build from there. Honestly, I'm looking at a new location in LA that we're working on for a few months, over 100,000 square feet. I'm going to buy my racks used. I'm going to go to liquidation sales and, try to fill that up. Why? Because that's how we stay open. That's how we support our customers and making sure that we give them the important things. They don't care if your racks are brand new, no scratches, or that you're using a robot that follows the person around. What, to save a minute? Like, come on, what are we going to save? 2 cents? It doesn't make sense. It just doesn't make sense. How much cash, the 3PL is going to put out? They're just going to be left with zero. And that's why they complain. And that's why when a brand doesn't pay them for a month, they're going to die. So that's my take on that.
Love it.
Yeah.
If a D2C founder is listening to this right now and shopping for a 3PL, what's the biggest red flag they should not ignore?
If their whole entire warehouse is bought on a Uline catalog, that's number one. What's one red flag that they should look out for if they see it to run away? Well, this is where the education comes in, but if their pricing looks too good to be true, it's definitely too good to be true. Oh, it's most of the time that's what happens. That's number one, especially if a brand is not holding hands with someone like yourself finding a 3PL. You'll catch these things. You'll call the 3PL out on these things. But yeah, I mean, if pricing is too cheap, there's something wrong. Honestly, if the contract is very rigid, very like terms, and it's a little scary.
Ironclad.
Oh, it's very scary. I'm telling you, the brand that we're talking to, they can't move. We could save them a lot of money, almost a 400 grand a year. They can't move because they're stuck into a contract. And they asked me in person, "What's your terms?" You know what I told them? Maybe I'm dumb. I don't know. I told them I don't have any terms. Yeah, it's a year, but technically you can get out whenever you want. Nothing is holding you here. You could open up another 3PL, open up with another 3PL, start diverting goods. We don't have any minimums, nothing. But I do tell them not one brand has left us since we opened. So I'm confident. I'm confident enough. So that's one thing, the contract, the terms, the minimums. I actually know a 3PL that will penalize someone that if the brand tells them, hey, we're expecting to sell on this sale 20,000 orders, and if that brand only gets 2,000 orders, the 3PL has something in their contract that will basically penalize them to make their money back. I kind of understand that, but
Right, because they're
still,
hiring more staff to be able to
yeah.
accommodate the volume.
So how does a 3PL go around that, right? Build your protocol, build your system in a way that it's dummy proof, right? Technically, if that happens to us, right, and we bring in, these temp workers, We're not gonna we're gonna bring enough. We're gonna make sure that we have our own employees to handle that. Because obviously it's not gonna happen in one day, right? It'll happen over like let's say 2 days or whatever. Um, when we bring in temps, because sometimes these 3PLs want to bring them in advance to train them, right, for a few days. We build our systems in a way that someone could just walk in, pick up the scanner. We teach them for 5 minutes, literally 5 minutes, what to do, because most of them is packers, right? We need a lot of packers. Pickers, we can pick in bulk. We can pick identical SKUs. We can pick by pallet. So it's really packers. We literally build it in a way that they just follow a light uh, follow a light or just it's forced scan, so they can't make any mistakes. Everything is forced. You can't type anything in. You can't do anything. You have to follow the commands. So and then our staff is trained enough to make sure to you know monitor all these people. But like Steve Jobs said in his that movie with Ashton Kutcher, I think he said this. You want to just build a product that you just give it to the person, you give it to the kid, and they just know how to use it, right? That's I think is super important. And trust me, I mean, my father is very old school, so we're lucky he knows how to operate an iPhone. Barely there, but that's the trick. Make sure your scanners translate to Spanish, right? That's an up, right? You're a step up. So I think those things are a big red flag. So pricing, too good to be true. A contract that looks scary, that's the size of a mortgage, and the first one was a 3PL that just overspends on every. You can tell. Look for those things, and I definitely recommend.
The first one was the if the pricing is too good to be true.
Yeah, too good to be true. Yeah.
So
So
those are actually two very true points. Obviously, in order to know if the pricing is too good to be true, is comparing it to other quotes that you received. The only way you'll know that is if it's significant difference, 35% and lower. But I want to end off with some rapid fire rounds. We've got 4 questions for you. Number 1, what's a logistics tool or system you swear by?
Flux. It's a put to light wall, affordable put to light wall system that I'm not gonna lie, I didn't make any money from them, but I did I helped them with their R&D on it. Amazing, amazing, great team.
What's a common myth about 3PLs you wish you could erase?
Common myth. Let me get back to that one. That's a good one.
One book or podcast that made you think differently as a founder?
There's actually 2. Guy Raz.
How I Built This?
Yes, amazing. I don't know what the name of this one is, but I know the president of Shopify runs a Jewish one with his name's Harley Finkelstein.
That's the founder of Shopify.
Yeah. I think he's president or CEO. Anyways, he has a podcast that he interviews all these Jewish entrepreneurs, like the founder of Palm Drink, the pomegranate drink, and those things. That's an amazing podcast. And of course, FulfillYN. So, and I'm not gonna lie, I do learn a lot from. I don't use ShipHero. We don't use that system, but I do learn. I love Aaron's posts. I mean, yours are great. Aaron's is also just like it just keeps you up to date on things like you would never think of. So
it's funny, back-to-back podcasts shouting out Aaron Rubin.
Really? Awesome.
And the 4th and final question: what's the most rewarding part of running ShipFlow today?
The brand success, of course, and not just like selling more, just how they got there. We're excited for the brands. They land a new retailer, or they land or the steps that they take to get to that success. And the success is just, I love it because as a brand owner, I was there, and it's such a great feeling. And also the warehouse, the success of a warehouse, the team at the warehouse, they're like family. Literally, people have been here for like 4 or 5 years with us. At the end of the year, we have barbecues and, these end of the year parties. It's literally a family, and the success that they have, and, the 3PL as a whole, and the new tech that comes in, and what can we do to make this faster? What can we do? The problems that we have and the solutions that we come up with, that's just the best feeling ever. So, and then the question number 2, I'm trying to think of something, what kind of myth, that people think of. Don't think 3PLs can only be run, I guess, by just people in the logistics. You'd be surprised as people that are in the brand space as well, how much more knowledge we have, and don't think working with a small team is that's like that 3PL won't work. You don't have to go to a 3PL that have 40 people on staff in the office. You know what I mean? That's just mind-boggling. And that's also a red flag as well. When that 40, I mean, it depends on the size of the 3PL, but there's a lot of dumb jobs that are out there that they're just trying to pump themselves up, their chest up, to make them look bigger. So you'd be surprised what a small team can do.
I remember when I used to go to trade shows, one of the questions that was always asked is, how many employees do you guys have? As if like employees is a metric of your success. Ezra, this has been great. It's been very insightful. I think the public's going to enjoy it. If someone wants to learn more about ShipFlow and get in touch, how should they go about it?
LinkedIn, email ezra@shipflow.co. Even if you're a brand, you're a 3PL, or just anyone in the space, or anyone that needs advice or anything, I'm always happy to lend a hand. There's tons of brands that are not with us, but we still talk to them every single day.
Awesome.
And by the way, I should end this. My name is Ezra. In Hebrew, Ezra means help.